Hello, welcome back to Creative You Podcast. Lily wanted to hop up here and be counted for, but so does Hartley. And he's big, he's down here. And every time I try to lower the camera so you can see him, he turns the other way. Sometimes big dogs just want to be little dogs, just for a little while, so they can be picked up and hoisted. So this is Lily, also known as Little Sunflower. And she is just the sweetest little girl, aren't you? So a lot has happened in the last week. And I decided, since I've had a lot of time at home, I would put another podcast on. And look at this little sweetheart. And so my day started out usually, and by the way, this is a knitting and crocheting podcast in case you've tuned in. Usually my husband gets up way earlier than me, but we've been getting into a bad routine of staying up late and getting up later. So I was the first one up because I had to close the shop by governor's order, and I had Patches, which is a big calico cat, over at the shop as part of a foster care program through Good Old Tales Rescue. She was not happy over there by herself, and so my husband and I went over the other night. She won't get in a cat carrier, and she walked right into it and came home peacefully. Well, we have a big, fat, furry, not fat, just big furry cat. In the winter, he looks like a big ball. He's a Himalayan seal point named Mac. All the neighbors know him because when we walk the dogs, Mac always goes along. And Mac likes to sit out on the front porch. And when we carried this carrier, Mac started making the most horrible noises. And Patches didn't do anything. So we kept Mac outside. We brought Patches in, let him out of the carrier. And at the yarn shop, she pretty much just stayed in the same spot. But here she toured the whole house, maybe just the cat's way of checking out danger, making sure everything's okay. She went in every room around the perimeter of the room. And then she went upstairs and jumped on her bed and started washing herself. She has been the most different cat here. The excessive shedding is gone, and she grooms herself. I realized too, I spend more time with her, which at the shop, I was doing shop stuff. But the next morning I woke up and she was laying by my side, all snuggled up. And she's been quite content. She walks past the dogs and meow, 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 meow. But they're not going to do anything to her. So over the last 3 to 4 days, we've made sure we kept the cats apart, not knowing what might happen. Mac tried to get into our bedroom. He's putting his paw under the door and shaking it. And Patches just sat on the bed, not looking worried at all. If you want to see what Patches looks like, go to my Facebook page, Creative You, and I have a little video and all. So she didn't seem to be worked up at all. So today I get up early, and right away 3 things happen. I let Mac in, and Patches comes down the steps. And I don't know if there's going to be fur flying, if there's going to be a cat fight. I walk in the bathroom and there's ants everywhere. I come out in the kitchen and feed the dogs, and Lily starts gagging and making high-pitched noises and throwing up, and yeah. So after everything got cleaned up and said and done, now my house smells like vinegar because I heard that ants do not like vinegar, so I doused the bathroom floor with vinegar. Patches went in and sat on the sofa, and not 3 feet away is our big cat in this recessed shelving that's built into the wall, hiding. He thinks he's hiding. So clearly the calico cat had the upper hand. sitting there on the arm of the sofa, letting it be known, I know you're there. You just try and come out. This is funny because at the rescue, Patches hid from the other cats. And it just goes to show you. Megan just posted a picture of a similar looking cat that just got adopted. She had this cat at her house for a year and a half because the cat was so shy that every time someone came to look at it, it hid. One day later at its new house, it is walking all around the house, happy, interacting with the owner, playing. So, you know, they know when they have a home. It changes everything for them. Well, little girl, I'm going to put you down. Let's be careful here. Yeah. There we go. She must like the camera because typically she doesn't let me snuggle her like that. I am drinking Great Value brand spiced apple cider, which is quite good. When our little twin grandsons were learning how to talk, Gavin would say, "Could I have some Great Value?" It was apple juice. But he was just reading the label. That was kind of funny. So get a drink and welcome back, or welcome newbies, and let's talk about some knitting and crocheting. So I've been trying to just do some things without patterns. This is a yarn called Cascade Malila or Malila. And all that I really did was border with some different stitches. I'll write this pattern up and then some spaced out double crochets and then a similar ending. This yarn feels really nice around your neck. I like the color changes, and yeah, so I would challenge all of you to play around and see what you can do. So last time, and I hope this doesn't happen this time, I had trouble with the iPad cutting off, and I was showing you this beanie called Macy, the Macy beanie. And I started to tell you that my husband was sitting on the bed and we were talking back and forth, and he's looking at his word game he's playing, and it's a television, and he doesn't realize that I have gone over to the mirror and I'm trying on this hat. And when he finally looks over at me, and here I am, he's bust out laughing uncontrollably, like that's not who I thought I was talking to. So I did this little experiment with a pattern that called for a super bulky yarn. It's the broken rib pattern. And I thought if I took an Aran weight mohair, which has pink and blacks in it, and some Galway chunky, that the two together would make a super bulky. And it just wasn't working out. This was knit on a 13 and a 15. Till it got all said and done, I had two strands, one of Galway chunky, one of Galway regular, two strands of the Aran mohair, and that it worked. One thing for sure, with all those strands of yarn, it is really nice and warm. I can't say that I'm super happy with it. I don't know what I was expecting as far as beauty. Maybe I was just trying to come up with ways to use up some yarn. So anyway, I played like a kid plays in the dirt. I played, I had a good time, and that's kind of it. So this was the lacy scarf that I was working on. I don't know if I ever showed it to you finished. This is Louisa Harding Lucy double-stranded, and I just pulled from both ends of the ball, so I didn't wrap it into two balls, and it made a pretty big long scarf. It does have some wool in it, so it would be warm for winter. And then you could, put it on however you want. However you want to do it. So I think because it's spring and these are kind of dark colors, I'm going to go back to my Malila. Talking about names, Malila, Malila, I started watching this old TV show when Catherine Zeta-Jones was a young woman, maybe 20, and played an innocent teenage girl. It's called The Darling Buds of May, and it's a comedy, and it is so, so funny. And it's about a young, structured young man who's trying to collect their taxes and comes, and he gets pulled into the whole family fun, and the farmer hasn't paid his taxes ever, I don't think. It's very funny. But her name was Harriet. And in the States, we would say Harriet. They said Harriet. So obviously, that's a takeoff on Harry, which I never realized that. So many women's names are takeoffs on men's names. So anyway, so for crocheting, this is a Louisa Harding yarn called Petora. This might be the Kahlo color, Frito Kahlo, the artist. This pattern is called Fern by Jan Power. There's a picture of it. So when it's finished, it'll have these little points, and it's going to need to be blocked. And I think I expected it to keep getting bigger as it goes along, which I guess it does. Mine's not that noticeable, but once it's blocked and I get the little points on, I think it's gonna really be fun. Yeah, it's looking to see if you have to buy this pattern. No, it's free download. And yeah, it moves along really quickly because about every 5 rows you slip stitch over, giving you these nice points. And I've enjoyed it a lot. It is a British pattern, so not realizing that, I was doing double trebles. But you know what? I like it with the fingering weight yarn. I like the double trebles. So this should be finished next podcast. And let's set that aside, and I'll interdisperse the knitting and the crocheting. Y'all know I like to read books. Y'all, here I am. I turned into a Southern here, y'all. So we've had this book in our kids' library here for a long time. It is so cute. It's by Jan Stevenson's and Susan Stevens Crummel, and it is about a cat. My name is Merle, Grumpy Kitty, and I am a cat, a very special cat. And he goes on to tell you that everything inside his house is perfect and everything is mine. The people that live here are cat people. Everything's perfect. And then look what happens. Look what gets brought into the house. And so the rest of the book is about how this dog just won't let him alone and finds him no matter where he hides and likes to lick him. And he's trying to think how he's going to get rid of this dog. How about the doggy out the door trick? Good puppy, just follow the crumbs outside, down the walk, down the street. So trying to lead the dog outside and lose him. And so the puppy keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You know why I put this here? I wanted to show you my orchid. And here I'm going to knock it over. My husband got me this last May for Mother's Day, and it bloomed, and within a month it looked like it was dead. So I just kept it in the window, and I watered it every week, and about 2 weeks ago I noticed it had a bud, and then about a week later another, and then now 2 more, and now a 5th, and it looks like I'm gonna have about 10 buds. So I wanted to show that to you with all this in our country, that everything is wacky. That's something that gives you hope, and going outside and seeing all the spring flowers and the trees just instill you with hope. So then hope, there's a big hungry dog in my house. No matter how many times I like this, read this book, I just like it. And so he gets taken home. He's trying to get rid of the dog, and he gets dressed up. It's really funny, but his dog comes and gets him at the end. He says, everything is mine, including this dog. So really cute. So I was at the little book, The Passion for Print, and again, all their books are $1. And I recognized right away that this book is by the same authors. This made me laugh, and as does the old TV show, if you have Amazon Prime, what did I say? The budding, it's an old Catherine Zeta-Jones. It is so funny. My husband, it's a TV show from way back. The first season had 5 episodes. You will watch it and you will laugh and laugh and laugh. So this made me laugh. It's called Help Me, Mr. Mutt, and it's about dogs. Do you have people problems? I saw on Facebook where somebody was printing cat not happy that owners are home all the time. So, dear Mr. Mutt, do I look fat? And goes on to say, my owner has me on a diet. They're starving me. I'm so hungry, my stomach growls louder than I growl. I'm wasting away. Soon there will be nothing left of me. I'm so weak. I don't think I can finish writing this letter. Help me, Mr. Mutt, famished in Florida. My people give the cat fancy food. All I get is tasteless gravel from Canine Court in Dogtona Beach. Dear Famish, pull yourself together. You do not look fat. Your tummy isn't even dragging on the ground. Study the food pyramid. And here at the top, avoid dry dog food. 2 a day of, is it canned food? 4 servings a day of, looks like snacks and goodies. And 8 a day of junk food. Dogs require at least 8 servings a day of scrumptious food. Your people do not understand this, so you will have to take matters into your own paws. Look on the countertops, and there's a pie. But this book will just make you laugh. The artwork is darling. And there he tells you how to get more food if there's a baby in the house, and dogs stacking up to get to the counter. It's really cute. And then there's a cat theme running through this, that the cat is the queen. And it is just so cute, so cute. And this this one is about a dog. Dear Mr. Mutt, it's ridiculous, outrageous, preposterous. Holidays are unbearable. I'm dressed up as a rabbit, an angel. I am not a baby or a bunny or a bride, or I am a dog. Where is my dignity? And my people never dress up the cantankerous cat. So, Mr. Mutt writes back, and here's the graph showing frequency of dress up by breed. The highest one, Poodle, Basset Hound, Mutt, and then least likely German Shepherd. So you have 3 choices, 2 bad and 1 good. Rip off, rip and run. Rip off the costume and run. Number 2, play dead. They'll be worried and you'll be at the vet. And number 3, grin and bear it. So it's a really cute book. If you have a chance to see this book or read this book, and you always hear from the Queen, the Cat. So this is Janet Stevens and Susan Stevens Crumble. So there's just a little bit of joy injected into your day. Okay, so I finished the little shawlette. This is out of Knitting Fever Painted Mist. The border, I forget how I did the border. I was worried that I wasn't going to have enough yarn left because of the border. And if I find my pattern here, there's the pattern. I didn't have the name on it, so when I figure it out, I'll let you know. Oh, the border, you had to insert the crochet hook through the next 3 stitches and slip off the needle, yarn over and draw through, and then chain 5. So you kept going in. It was like a crochet edging, and it's more of a little scarfette than a big shawl. It has a nice shape. I blocked it. Nice spring colors, and it is an acrylic yarn. It doesn't have a lot of drape, but a lot of people that make shawls, there's a requirement not to use any wool. So what can you do? And then my little garter yoke baby cardie, I have to work in the ends. You could probably fold the sleeves up if you wanted it to be cute. You can make this in solid colors or whatever. You had to pick up stitches and do the band. You could do an I-cord or just a regular, but I don't know. I feel like it looks like a lot of holes and very lacy. So once I get my buttons on, hopefully it's going to look nicer, but all in all, it's quite cute. It does want to flare up there, which when you change stitches, that can happen because stitches are different lengths and widths, and you can have things like that happen. So I will finish that. Well, now I was going to the shop anyway, even though it was closed, doing inventory, cleaning up, working on projects, and now there's an order that we're quarantined to our homes. At first, I didn't understand this. My husband and I went to the bank, and I thought the teller was telling us that there's an 8 o'clock curfew. And she said, well, you can go to doctor's appointments, you can get groceries and so forth. And I'm thinking, why would you want to do that after 8 o'clock at night? I don't get that. And then I was posting some things for the shop on Facebook, and one of the customers, Beverly, wrote and said, well, you're my fun because I'm quarantined. And I wrote back, well, what are you talking about? So now we are quarantined to our houses. I have some serious concerns about all of this, so I may or may not share them later about my views on this. So, whoa, there went my crochet hook. This is called Katia Darling. I really like this yarn. Whether you make socks or shawls, it just feels really nice. It's a superwash merino. It's not itchy. It doesn't make you hot when you have it around your neck. And I decided to start designing a shawl. And I think a lot of designs are just very simple. So I'm alternating a couple different stitches. Now, in art, one of the things that they will say is, do something unexpected. Do you want to do plain Jane? Or do you want to do something that really sets it off as different? So there's a shawl by Tamara Kelly where she saves this for the very end of a boomerang shawl, but I decided to insert something interesting and working out like how many rows to do and what color to do. My husband thought a mint green might look nice. Usually if you take a neutral, it will kind of tame down the wild jungle colors, or this can almost look Christmassy, except it does have pink. So this is called Oyster Bisque. It's from the Alpaca Company. It's a yarn called Mariquita. Mariquita is Spanish for ladybug. And so now I have to try to decide, this is a different pattern too, how I'm going to work this all in. The safest, easiest way would have just been to keep going, and so we shall see. All right, this is Mariquita, is a really nice soft yarn. It has some alpaca in it and some tencel, which gives nice drape. And I would really like to do a shawl with this. Okay, I am getting things all mixed up here. So, if any of you are interested, the little sweater is called the Garter Yoke Baby Cardi. And that is by Jennifer Hoel, like the name Noel, but with an H. And I think it's a free pattern, but I'm not positive. Okay. And all the things I've been working on and I've showed you are not finished, but and the one thing that I said I was going to cast on, I didn't, because being at the shop and not having any customers, and what I wanted to cast on was at home, so then you cast on something different. I also, at the shop, found a scarf that somebody made at some point that looks just like the Lucy scarf I made, with a couple maybe alternate rows in. It looks like exactly the same thing, which the scarf is called my almost I think handmade lacy scarf. And surprisingly, they also did double strand, which the pattern doesn't tell you to do that, but this is long, so you could really have some fun with this. So just kind of a coincidence here. I did want to show you my little blue box. So there's only one company that I can get the blue box from. They sell for just $5. And you have all these little compartments where you can put all of your things. And I even have one long one for my cable needles, and if you have a small pair of fold-up scissors, and so forth. It has saved me a lot of money because I've stopped losing things. This is called a handy tool, and I sell a lot of these. I order them in like 20 at a time. You can use it as a cable needle to pick up stitches, as a little crochet hook, and they sell for less than $2, and people will say, oh, I better take another one of those home. So that's the little blue box. Looks like a little suitcase. And this was the hat that I ended last time the show with. So my husband and I are talking, and all of a sudden he looks over at the counter, not expecting to see this. I feel like, yeah, he just cracked up, no hair showing. Yeah, so this really is a nice hat. I would like to do it in a solid color too. I wasn't really crazy about doing the puff pattern because I felt like I was always fighting and pulling through, and it took some time. But you know what? Some projects are just worth the effort. They're just worth the time. Okay, so this is a ripple pattern that is free. And the big thing here was what colors to pick. And colors can mean a lot. And if you like, you'll see things maybe posted on Facebook or whatever, and maybe the colors just look really bad. And you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, so you don't want to say, oh, that looks really bad. So then people go the opposite way and say, oh, that's really beautiful. And that's not the way to do it either. It's kind of a tough call, especially if you don't know somebody. You're not going to say, wow, those colors don't work at all. Let me see if I can find this blanket here. So the thing is, you want to do like a different color every single, because I'm going to have a lot of the blue because that's only being used after each color. And I really don't want to have yarn left over. Well, if I can't find it, oh, this is very similar. That's called the spoke flower blanket. I did know when I went back and listened to my last podcast that I could hear my big dog drinking water and lapping water and making noises. I can just imagine viewers thinking, what's going on there? But anyway, I've also seen people make these so they look like Spider-Man blankets. So I don't know if I want to just keep going with my colors. So I did colors that are really go together well. And then I tried to pick something with higher value for the middle stripe. And I'm sure that we've gone over this before. If you want to see that if you have value, changes in value, you take a picture. So let's take a black and white picture here of our yarn. And let's see here. Let's turn them this way. Okay, here's our 3 skeins of yarn. Okay, here's our black and white picture. So the 3 skeins look like the same thing practically, meaning they're the same value. There's the dark color. If I was doing, say, a Fair Isle hat, I wouldn't want to use these together because they're the same value. So if you look at an art scale, value goes from light, almost white, all the way up to black. But for something like this, it can be nice to use colors that are the same, or you can do really wild things. So this is very easy. You can memorize the pattern easily. The other thing I thought about doing was, if this is 4 repeats, then doing 5, then doing 6, then doing 7, but I decided just to do a 5-row repeat of each. So hopefully this will be finished. And I wondered if you all know about the sequence that for doing striping. It's called the Fibonacci. Let's see, yes, Fibonacci, Fibonacci. eye. They use it in weaving, and they use it in knitting. And what you do is you have a number sequence. You can do it with scarves too, or anything. And it starts out number 1, number 1, number 3, number 5, and then you keep adding. So there's your numbers, 1, 1, 3, 5, 8, 13. So then they get added. So 2 gets added to 3, and that makes 5. 5 gets added to 3, that makes 8. And that's how you space apart your stripes to make it more interesting. If you don't, and you make a sweater, it could end up looking like a bumblebee. And so I picked up a book today that I thought would show a nice, see if you can see that alternate sequence for striping. So it's pretty dark. It's not, there's one that probably shows up better. It's not, you don't want to do every other, unless you do want a very uniform striping. So look it up. It can be a lot of fun. So this is what I ended up starting. Like, I really needed to start another project. This is a really, really pretty yarn called Katia Funny Rainbow. And it's 2 strands, 2 different colors, stranded together. It's a cotton yarn, DK weight. And what do you think of this funky pattern? I stayed up the other night till 4 in the morning, and that one row took me a long time, and yet that's the fancy row that makes it special and makes it different. Here's the pattern, a nice topper in the summer for a top or a bathing suit, and you can see at the top that pretty sequence. The rest is just knitting. So from here on out, I just have 14.5 inches of stockinette stitch to go, and then I think some short row shaping. So we'll see how that goes. My husband really likes to play this word game on the iPad or his phone. Is it called Bookworm? I'm not sure. You get a grouping of letters, and then you have to see how many words you can spell. You need so many 3-letter words, so many 4, so many 5. And a lot of times if you look at something too long, you lose your perspective, and then I'll come along and all of a sudden rattle off the words. Same way if you putting together a jigsaw puzzle and you lose your way, and then you give it 20-30 minutes and come back and you can put in all these pieces. But here's what I do, and don't tell him. I can't believe people spend money on these games. There's a website called wordunscrambler.com, and you can go and put in the letters and press go, and it will bring up all the words that you can make. Now, it's not perfect, so my husband will get stuck, and of course you can't advance to the next level until you clear it. And I'll say to him, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and then I'll go over and pull that website up. It's sitting on the counter, and then I'll call, hey, did we think of the word mason, or how about epic? And I'm getting them all. I don't really think of it as cheating, just creatively helping him. So this was a book that I had at the shop. I think it originally sold for something like $28, hundreds of edgings. And I don't know why, but most crochet books disappoint me. And I thought that a lot of the edgings weren't pretty. And why do hundreds and hundreds just to say you did hundreds and hundreds of you know, some of them, a lot of them, I just didn't like. And I guess I was thinking at first, you know, if you did a shawl and these would have some pretty edgings in, but I'm just not impressed. And there are, I think, over 300 different edgings. And I'm not saying there aren't any that are nice. I'm just saying overall for the price of the book, and I was just disappointed. Yeah. So that's a quick little review on that book. And then I found this. I'm not even sure where I got it, maybe at an auction. And it is the Good Shepherd Book of Afghans. You know, when I was looking for names for the shop, I had thought about the Good Shepherd. He takes care of his sheep, and surprisingly, the name was taken. But this book is from, the price was 25 cents. It starts out Afghan, pertaining to Afghanistan, or a crocheted or knitted soft wool blanket or carriage robe. That is what, adding these three definitions to the fact that rugs from Afghanistan, which are also called Afghans, are soft wool rugs, usually in geometric design, we have worked out a fairly accurate origin of handmade Afghan and its design as it appeared in the colonies of New England early in the 18th century. So that is crocheted, and that was called a colonial Afghan. I love when I'm watching movies to look for like quilts or crocheted blankets or knitted things in the background. And here would be another crocheted. I do think in the past people were more tolerant of doing blocks and piecing them together than we are now. That's one that I'm sure could be used today. How do you like how these two ladies look all prim and proper with their carriage robe on? Cable stitch Afghan. And did I find a year on this? 1934, if any of you were wondering. And there's two more very stylish women with their wraps over their shoulders. You know, it was a thing in the classic black and white movies where the gentleman always said, "Are you cold?" And he'd give the woman his jacket. There's the striped throw. And of course, these are all black and white pictures. But it's just kind of interesting. This was from the Shepherd Worsted Mills in Newton, Massachusetts. This one I was tempted to try. It's a crochet stitch. So yeah, it might be fun. I find that very few magazines or old books don't at least have one thing in that you would want to make. Paul and I, my husband, we were watching this series on TV called Jamestown. And at first it was very interesting, and then it kind of got bizarre as far as the things that happened, and the governor was like a dictator, and the things he did were just unbelievable. So sometimes that happens with a series. It starts out really strong, and then the writing kind of goes downhill. So the actors can only do with, you know, what is written. So as far as what's been going on in our country, if you want to turn the podcast off now, maybe you don't want to hear my views, maybe you will think they are very radical, But I think the time to be quiet has passed. About a year ago, my husband and I became aware that there were YouTube videos about Walmart closings, these strange Walmart closings, and Walmarts that were closing. Some of them had just opened, and what was going on, and they were being made into what looked like prisons with wires around the top and guard towers. Now again, I'm not telling you this to scare you, but I don't think that we should be ignorant. And I think this is a time to draw close to your Maker. He told us in the Bible that hard times would come, times that we had never seen before would come upon this earth. There's a very down-to-earth minister in Hawaii I love to listen to named J.D. Farag, F-A-R-A-G, and he's done a lot of podcasts on prophecy updates and how what is happening relates to things in the Bible. And if you've never opened the Bible, you'd be very surprised how relevant it is and how it will speak to you and your life. So JD said last week he can't imagine, that was the morning I was up till 4 o'clock working on this, and he said, if you're on the East Coast, what are you doing awake? But he can't imagine, with everything that's happened, things going back to the way they were. There's mass hysteria, there are suicides as people lose their businesses. For me, it's a time to look to God. He loves us. He loves his children. If you give your heart to him, he's not going to forsake you. I think that's what is happening is a form of martial law. And when my husband and I watch these YouTube videos of what is going on with Walmart, they said that Sam Walton was actually in charge of Japanese internment camps during World War II for the Japanese, and that Walmart is heavily subsidized by our government. Why? And that they are being made into prison camps, and there was some thought that maybe homeless people were already being taken in, and that Walmart actually is a play on words meaning martial law. Now again, I'm not saying this to scare you, and if you think I'm crazy, you can turn it off, because I know I'll turn some of you off, and that's okay. If you don't want to hear this, just turn me off. And so every person is now within 10 minutes of a Walmart. So if a catastrophe was invented, they could say, everybody go to the nearest Walmart. Your children are bussed in from school, everybody go to the nearest Walmart. And then what if they lock it down? About 2 years ago, we got a Sam's Club in this area, and whether it was the Holy Spirit within me, I don't know, but when we rode past, I said to my husband, that building reminds me of a prison. Why do some towns have 2 Walmarts? Is it because when the population gets so big, they might need 2? And again, Jesus said, when these things come upon the earth, look up, your redemption draws nigh. This is not a time to be scared. This is a time to give yourself, your heart to God, to commit yourself and depend on him for your security in the outcome. Now, there's a lot of talk about the rapture, and there's some talk that we could be in a Jubilee year. Back in the Old Testament, every 50 years was a Jubilee year, and the land went back to whoever owned it. So if you fell into debt and your family land was taken from you in the Jubilee year, it was given back. Well, the Jewish people, God's people, were scattered, and Moses told them that one day they would come back to their homeland. And it may be time that God is ready to bring his children home. The rapture happens in maybe a nanosecond. I don't know. It's not the blink of an eye. It's the twinkle of an eye. Suddenly people that were sitting in a chair will not be there. All Christians that I know are groaning for this to happen. The world has become very sinful when you celebrate the killing of babies. You know, it's awful. People who haven't given their hearts to God react in fear, like, oh, let's not hope it's that. I mean, we don't want, no, they want to stay here. But God told us that things here will get very, very bad. Christians have known for a while that there will be some type of a world crisis that will occur, and then a world leader will come on the scene and have the answers, and he will be the Antichrist. And my husband and I have talked about what that item could be. He often thought it might be water, but it could be this virus that was released upon all of us. Bill Gates and all his money have consorted for a virus that your microchip is in that virus. That way, you would all know who was safe to go out in the world and buy and sell if you could prove that you had the chip. Well, that sounds